Hello, and welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast. Well, it's the fastest growing conservative, evangelical, charismatic
testimony
podcast in the entire Fox Chapel area. Ben and I are joined today by a special guest who's already been photographed for the Wall of Fame. Britaini Evanuik, welcome.
Thank you.
To the studio.
Great to have you.
It's great to have you.
It brings some relief to me to know that there's actually an adult in the room for this podcast.
Less
for
editing
once.
needed than normal.
Yeah.
I think so.
So welcome.
You observed just before we pressed record that we'd put you in a humiliatingly low chair. And you said, is this what you do?
Right. I just want to make sure we're consistent in our beliefs and our actions.
Yeah, there's one. So we normally have we both have swivel chairs in this large purple room with a shabbily ill-fitting old rug and portraits of ourselves or our
the
lookalikes.
rug prevents the chairs from rolling.
Yeah,
it does.
It's a little janky in here, but there was one at the end of the table that you were in. We just don't have enough budget for
fancy podcast chairs. Yeah.
So yours was lower.
It was really humiliatingly low as you sat in it. So
yeah.
Ben has kindly given
Glad
up his chair, and you deserve a throne.
Yeah.
So welcome. Brittany, it was great on Sunday. We do these new member things sometimes, and some people want to stand up at the front and say who they are or share a testimony, and some people get listed in the bulletin. But you had this thing we've never done before, beautiful Meet the Evanuiks flyer that you handed out, and you served cakes and things to people. I mean, how did it go? Did loads of people come up to you?
I think a good number went. I think it went well
It
overall.
was nice.
Some people were confused. They thought, well, haven't you been going here a while? I said, yes, but it's official now.
Yeah, that's an interesting story because we've known each other for well over a year.
Yeah.
But how did you even find us? I forget.
We started going here, I want to say 3 years ago.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
3?
Mm-hmm.
Oops. It's so funny, hard to keep track.
Yeah.
So then, how did you find us in the first place? I can't remember.
We used to go to a church in Plum, which is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And all of our kids were baptized there. We were married there. I started going there again for grieving purposes because my mom's funeral was in there. So that's why I started going there. Yeah. And that church actually had a lot of, you could tell God was moving in that church. And, but then my daughter, Ruby, she's more in school age. So we wanted to get more connected into the community where we live.
Yeah, makes sense.
And just logistically, it would take too long to drive over there for any events.
That makes sense. I think a lot of people started to do that post-COVID was, they were in great churches, but the churches were quite far away and they wanted to be in a community.
That's what Eugene Peterson says. He says, when you're looking for a church, find the smallest, closest church.
Yeah.
And give it a try.
That's legit.
So.
Right. And then for me, the importance is the gospel, that the gospel is communicated. That's number one.
I love that.
And
I really, really appreciate that.
And I also like the children's ministry. I think Tammy, Mrs. Fire, does a great job.
Oh, she's superb. She's great.
And she's genuine. I know she knows her stuff.
She does.
And I have seen people who lead Sunday school that don't know the difference between a Pharaoh and a Pharisee.
Okay. She's definitely beyond that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel better.
Yeah, she's
and
definitely
trusting my children into her care.
Yeah, Pharaoh and a Pharisee.
Pharaoh was not a Pharisee.
He was probably a bit Pharisaical in some ways.
Yeah,
he was a systems guy.
He's a systems guy. Yeah.
You're married to, I guess, a systems guy.
Yeah,
Sean.
Right. That would be a good description. He is an engineering leader. He works for Vertiv, who does. They're in the business of data centers. So data centers right now are impacted by AI.
Oh, I imagine so.
So he's helping solve that problem with all the different loads and new regulations. And software to make it all connect.
That's an intense job. It's a lot.
It's complicated and it's big numbers. Those are billion-dollar projects, all the batteries to power the data centers.
It makes sense. I mean, we have one that big just for this podcast. So we live in that world.
For our millions of listeners.
You reach millions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the interesting things about you, I mean, everyone's interesting, but one of the interesting things about you is that you have a background in ministry, amongst other things. Mm-hmm. I know you told me at one point about a year ago that you'd worked at Light of Life. That's right, isn't it? What do they do?
They're a gospel rescue mission. So gospel rescue missions are a type of organization across the country and the world that serves the homeless and addicted. So they often start off as soup kitchens, and then their programming usually expands from that.
So there's more than one. Is that right?
Yes, there's a whole coalition of gospel rescue missions.
Did you know that?
And it's like an actual, like they're a like gospel rescue mission is more than, that's not just a descriptive term. Like that's an organization essentially.
Well, it's a descriptive term, but there is a coalition.
A coalition of gospel rescue missions.
Gospel rescue missions across the country.
Is there just one in Pittsburgh though, right? On 28?
There's one in downtown Pittsburgh. There's one in Washington. There's one in Newcastle.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
So when you were there, were you volunteering there or on a paid staff team?
No, I've worked there for almost 12 years.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh, wow.
And what was your role?
I was in administration. So I wore a lot of different hats over the years. Yeah. But I started in accounts payable, and then I basically tried to do that job as quickly as possible to get into more of the culture transformation things. So when I started there, they had brought on consultants to have a grace-based approach to programming.
Yeah.
And then the organization decided to apply that approach to the whole organization.
Really?
So basically what we're teaching our clients, we want staff to also embody that teaching.
And what does it do?
What's that look like?
It's a buying question.
Well, that's what this is. The paper I gave you, that's like
Can we post
the
your notes
assumptions.
Show notes. Can we post show
Can we
notes?
post show notes? Do you know?
This could be a fine,
Nice.
or I could break this
say
up.
I'm
yes
just
or
going to describe it. There's this. You've created a diagram essentially, or a almost like a flow chart. It seems like with a lot of different thoughts. I'm seeing keywords, idols, basically juxtaposition between my story is my problem and my story is my purpose. There's a Venn diagram of grace, truth, and time. Freedom equals the gospel. There's just a lot of different ideas, and I can tell you've kind of there's an underlying kind of movement you're getting at here. And yeah, so is this kind of come from what you learned at Light of Life?
Yeah, this is an assimilation of what we talk. This would basically be the assumptions that we believed that lead to change and transformation.
Yeah.
Right.
So every nonprofit it's created for a purpose.
Yeah.
And then it has a theory of change on how we believe transformation happens. And then the inputs, outputs, outcomes that lead to the social impact or transformation.
Yeah.
So this is all the assumptions behind the theory of change, how we believe people transform in Christ as Christians.
Yeah.
So that's what this is.
So when someone comes to you in need, you have a kind of theology or theory of change that's already worked through in your mind. Well, this is what we need to do. These are the steps basically that will see a person transform.
Right. And so if we believe that this is what leads to transformation, why wouldn't we apply this to staff? So everything that we do, why wouldn't this impact fundraising in the same way? Why wouldn't this impact performance management?
So you're effectively applying the gospel of grace to every facet of what you do instead of just viewing. What would you call people that came for help? Would you call them clients or customers, or what was the word?
Clients. Or program participants or guests.
So you're not us and theming in a way. You're not saying, okay, here's how we fix you, but we don't have any problems of our own.
Right.
That would be very patronizing. Yeah. So I think that makes sense. So So you recognize your own need for the gospel. And then out of letting Christ fill that need, there's an overflow.
Right.
Is that the basic idea?
Yep. You can't give what you don't possess.
Yeah. So was this all new for you when you were working there, or did it kind of, what was that? How did that affect you?
It was new to me. So I first started, my undergraduate was in marketing management. And so I first looked at this transformation more from an internal marketing perspective. But then as I learned this information, I became far more interested in learning about people. Also, I was right out of college and did not understand people. I learned a lot about people there.
Like the hard way, or how did you learn about people?
Oh, yeah, the hard way.
The hard way.
Yeah.
Through offending people or seeing them fail?
Sure.
Or, really? Yeah.
Yes.
I think probably we all go through that. It's you can maybe have all sorts of ideas, but when you're actually ministering with people, you realize, man, I mean, we learn a lot more through saying sorry to people than coming up with bright ideas, I think.
Yeah.
And the depths of woundedness that people carry with them.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're going, I was just focused on learning things in college. It's not like I also wasn't working with people who were older than me. And so just seeing all that play out, and within this context of learning more about addiction and recovery and healing.
Yeah, well, you said on Sunday a couple of really fascinating things. One was almost like a little phrase that you had, which was the opposite of addiction is community. I've never heard that before, and as soon as you said it, it resonated. But I'd love to know why you say that. The opposite of addiction is community.
So part of this diagram, like we live in a fallen world, and we all have wounds, and we're all sinned against, and we all sin. When we're born, we're dependent on our parents.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but because we live in a fallen world, at some point, our brain learns or believes that we can't rely on other people, and I have to do things myself. So I have to control. And there could be a lot of different reasons for that. Like for people in, if a mother in addiction, if she's pregnant, that baby will automatically have like what they call an addicted brain. So those pathways are already wired in their brain that they need to help themselves.
Right.
But it happens just with life. So I learned to put on different masks so I'm accepted because I don't believe I'll be loved and accepted how I truly am. So I act a certain way to control how I'm perceived or controlling other behavior. So it's a lot about...
Are you saying that the same kind of neural pathways or like functions that we try to develop to control our life is the same thing that leads to that is the addiction mentality. That's what the same impetus or impulse or set of behavioral patterns are what lead people into addictions.
Yes. So
interesting.
We have neural pathways in our brain.
Yeah.
That are created. Like if you think of your brain as a cornfield, and the more I go down a path, the easier the path becomes to travel. So that could be a thought pattern or something like that. But if trauma is involved, there's more neurons. So it's like a freight train plowing through the field. So that like neurons that fire together wire together. So that means that in a traumatic situation, it's wide open. It's like a super highway.
Yeah.
You have all those neural pathways. To create an off ramp on that, it's like, using your machete to plow a little
side path.
Path.
Yeah.
That pathway never goes away.
You
have to.
The highway does.
Yeah, it never goes away. You have to create a new path in the brain, which is difficult. And there's certain things you can do to create those new pathways.
Yes.
Like physical things like laughter, being in loving Christ-like community and
Starting to understand this.
Those help you create those.
So being in a community enables you to create new pathways, new ways of thinking and being.
Yes.
And why is that? Because you have to get along with other people and share ideas, or because they make you happy? Like, what is it about community that essentially heals addiction?
Well, I think part of it is the brain,
yes.
and that's how God created us. So when you think about
Very good.
that little baby that's born into a bad situation or born into abuse and neglect,
right?
Yeah.
And they're statistically like guaranteed to become like an addict,
right?
Really? Wow.
They're predisposed to these things.
So discouraging.
Yes.
And like, what in the world? They don't have a choice with that, right?
It's a very different worldview. I mean, that reality just throws a wrench in this kind of like up from the bootstraps worldview that like everybody, successful, unsuccessful, rich and poor, is all born with a blank slate, and everybody earns everything that they get in life. It just isn't true. Because no one, the starting line is just in a different place for everyone.
And so that is more. So what I thought when I learned those things, I thought that's awful. So now what?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what? The so what question.
So God creates an answer for that. He created our brains that they can change. So it's not set. Nothing about your brain is set. There's neuroplasticity. It can change. And it changes within loving relationships and with new thoughts.
Brilliant.
So you have your experiences, your feelings that come out of that, and then the beliefs. And so you can change those things. And that's what I believe the Bible talks about when it's talking about renewing your mind. When you renew your mind with scripture, especially doing those things in a safe environment where your brain is open to creating those new pathways, which is why I was a fitness teacher, gospel preacher, because when you're exercising, you create more neurons. Really? And you listen to the word of God while you're exercising.
That's the way to go.
That'll help. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
That's more efficient.
That's really interesting.
So that I think God has created ways for healing that's around the gospel and his goodness and who he is.
Brilliant.
So in this diagram, we have grace, truth, and time. That's how Henry Cloud often describes healing.
Henry Cloud?
Henry Cloud, yeah.
Did he invent the cloud?
He's a well-known Christian therapist, I think. But grace, truth, and time, that is God, and that is the gospel. So we really do heal through the gospel. And so why community is so important to, it's the opposite of addiction, is because you have these superhighways in your brain.
Yeah.
It's very hard to control that. So even the Bible talks about our flesh.
Yes.
So we need other people to speak into that.
Right.
And we need to tell people. So if I'm wearing a mask and I'm pretending that everything's fine, how would you know to help me? This
was the phrase you had, right? As I reach for my new reading glasses. This is the phrase you had, right? People need to tell. You can't do this unless you tell others what's happening in your head.
Yeah.
People can't know what's going on in your head unless you tell them. And so is that where the community comes in as well? That you're vocalizing your own concerns or addictions or pain and having truth spoken into it by another believer.
Right. So in recovery or AA, they have a sponsor, and that's who you call whenever you're thinking those things. So there was one time we had a small group meeting or gathering where it was a couple coworkers and a couple clients. And one of the clients was fairly new, and he was telling a story about how he got a pass to go to his sister's birthday or something. And he was telling this story as if to like get a pat on the back because he felt like using over the weekend.
Yeah.
And then he prayed about it. And then God, like with prayer, God helped him not use again. Yeah. So he was expecting a pat on the back of that. But my coworker said, let me get this straight. You felt like using.
Yes.
And you didn't tell anybody. You just prayed about it. And he said, yeah, I prayed and God helped me. He said, you just played Russian roulette with your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is a big deal. You have to tell people when you feel like using. Because
community is the opposite of addiction.
Yeah, you can't trust your brain.
The brain that's addicting you is not a thing you can trust on your own.
Right. How can any of us trust our brains?
There was a woman who was actually a theology professor who went to a church that I a long time ago went to, and she once gave a testimony, and she said that she had struggled with bipolar and a few other mental illnesses her whole life, and she said had come to not trust her own emotions or her own perception of reality exclusively, because like she really needed the church, she needed community, because the heart, the mind has an ability to deceive, and we get buried down in our own faulty narratives all the time, and you really need other people in order to have sanity in the full definition of the word.
I'm intrigued. Does work help with addiction? Does having a job or a purpose or a task to do help or not?
I'm sure. So there's also, like, work is good.
Yeah.
So work is, I do think, part of living a Christ-centered life.
I'll tell you where I'm going with it. It's just, as you were talking, I was thinking a bit about Genesis and the fall, and how, we're made for a relationship with God, relationship with the land or work, right, and relationship with each other, Adam and Eve before the fall. Mm-hmm. And so there's this three thing, right? God, work, relationship. Mm-hmm. And the fall comes and it's all disrupted and broken, and we go our own way and all of these things. And then you're talking about community, which immediately, you've talked a lot about God and community, which feels like two of the three things. That's why I'm asking about work. I'm just wondering if that plays a part in this as well. Purpose, perhaps, would it be a better word than work?
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with their identity.
Yeah.
And their purpose.
Yeah.
And so part of these two choices is you can see your pain and your past as something to fix or a problem or something you can't get past, versus my pain is my purpose. And this is something that God will use to glorify and God will use to spread his story.
That's the redemptive element to it then. Now that's something you've not touched on yet. This would be the notion that if you've been through something like an addiction or a trauma, that God is a God of redemption, that he can turn that and use it for further good. Do you see things like that come out of Light of Life, or even just this whole mindset? Do you see people who've been essentially involved in the healing of others?
I think that's always the case. So I don't think it's linear, but I think that anytime someone turns to God, there's the fruit of that is his glory, and it's all good. In my mind, I frame things, and I also do this with my children.
Okay.
This is how I talk about most things, is that is basically these two paths.
Yeah.
So you're on the path of life or you're on the path of death.
Very clear.
You are walking towards God or you're walking away from him. And there's always an opportunity to turn it back, which is repentance, and go back towards God.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And so I'm interested in what you're saying about my pain is my problem versus my pain keys me into my purpose. How have you seen that? How does that happen? Like, where have you, like, just kind of concretely, what does that look like?
It looks different for every person, but the process that I would teach people would be self-examination, which is a lot of behavioral theory. So you start with your situations and your feelings and your thoughts and the beliefs behind those thoughts and what that looks like. So the fruit of those beliefs, that could be a lot of different things. That could be people pleasing, that could be avoiding, that could be anger. I mean, any thing that we see in our actions.
It feels like a bingo card of things. I'll probably do all of those things.
It could be a lot of different things. And we also actually give ourselves permission before we actually act.
Oh.
So that's the
it's going to be, I deserve this, like it's a treat or something.
Or that person deserves this.
Oh.
And then that would
have it coming.
Yeah, and then that would give me permission to.
So really, I'm an agent of justice here. I'm doing the Lord's work.
That's that's the next level, is identifying the permissions you're giving yourselves before you examine your actual actions. So when we look at all those things, and you might identify a lie, like nobody will ever love me, or God doesn't love me, God's not with me, God was not with me when that thing happened. Those have implications for how we treat others, how we carry on our lives. I really don't think those beliefs, I think it impacts our entire day.
It all collapses then from there. So you begin with this lie, God's not with me, God doesn't love me, God doesn't care about me. And from that, what we extrapolate, therefore he doesn't care about other people too. They're just objects I can abuse, or what cascades from there? Or I need to find love. Okay. I need to find a better God.
Yeah.
Right. Or I need to provide this for myself. I need to protect myself. And that can look a lot of different ways.
I need to protect myself. I need to provide for myself.
Because God doesn't provide for me and hasn't, because he's let me down.
Right.
I need to go hunting for some better thing myself.
It's very interesting that is all those kind of lies are strangely reminiscent of the serpent's lie in the garden. Like, did God really say that you can't eat of this fruit? Like, you'll be like God.
It's so well timed, because we're walking through Ezra 9 right now. And this is Wednesday morning as we're recording this. We've not yet recorded regular podcast or preached. But in fact, this is actually the stuff that we're going to be examining on Sunday, funnily enough, right in the middle of all of this whole idea of why is it the people of God in Ezra 9 go and do this abominable thing. It's so obviously wrong, right? And they've been blessed so obviously well. God's put them back in the promised land and given them a temple and all these cows to eat and gold and all this great stuff, and each other. And they decide instead to go off and marry pagans and set fire to their kids, which is just such a needle scratch, crazy. They've been given the best thing imaginable. They've done the worst thing imaginable. So really extreme story. As Ben points out, it's basically the Genesis story. And this is quite well timed. The thinking, all right, let's test a theory. The people in Ezra, the people of God, are they thinking, oh, this is on me, I need to provide for myself here because God isn't going to be there for me? Is that what they're thinking when they go and do paganism? Is that what's happening in their heads? I can't trust God. I need to fix this myself.
I think it often comes down to not trusting God. And then we feel like we have to control.
Is that what's happening in the garden with the snake, with the fruit?
I don't trust God.
Same mechanism.
I don't trust what he's saying. I don't trust in his goodness and his knowing for me.
He's distant. He's not present. He's not relevant to my life. All these kinds of things.
Well, here's an encouragement, because the first time around in the garden, right, before the fall, that's especially untrue. I mean, now, after the fall, you can understand why people might think that way. It's really difficult to understand why Adam would think that way before the fall.
I don't know. I'm capable of neglecting the truth when it's right blaringly obvious in front of my face. I've often found.
Because we love the lie. The lie resonates with some pathway there. It's fascinating.
And and that's why it's a challenge every single day to abide in Christ, because that's the only way this works.
So here's another, this is really interesting. As Adam, if you like, trodden one of those big pathways for us then? Is that a way of looking at sin and the fall? That Adam has created a kind of super highway of sin in our brains for us?
It could be, because we have fallen brains.
We do have fallen brains. Remarkable.
So you worked for 10, you said 12 years?
Almost 12 years.
Almost 12 years at Light of Life. And this started, all of this was new to you and came in to your life. How did that impact you as what did that spark a kind of a personal transformation for you? What was some of the fruit of that in your own life?
Well, as I'm learning this and teaching this, I'm committing to it. Like, I'm all into this. So if anything would come up, I would go through the self-examination process.
Really?
And there have been situations that I have self-examined for years until I received healing from it. So it's not a linear process.
Gotcha.
It's not a one and done. It's an everyday going through this process. Yeah.
Because we want the quick fix, don't we? I guess the taking of the fruit is the quick fix, right? But the marrying of the pagans is the quick fix. Like, we want a shortcut to easiness.
I think the whole process draws us closer to God.
Right, I do. I think you're right.
When we do that.
I think you're
and
right.
And I think that anytime anyone's experienced God's goodness, there's hope. And if they can remember that, they will be drawn to it.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Ben.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you're looking at, your life 15 years ago and your life now, what's changed?
Like everything.
Yeah.
The one story that comes to mind about this process, and that took a long time, was with my mom. So she had ovarian cancer. It metastasized to her brain, the meninges, which is the area around your brain and spine. And I was a caregiver. And she had a very difficult week in the hospital. And that was and then she received very poor care. And then she ended up in the ICU with bacterial pneumonia that went septic. And it was 4 weeks in the hospital. And meanwhile, I'm like praying all the time. And I've seen other miracles with her health before. So I'm praying all the time. I wasn't aware of some of the culture of hospitals, and there was just a lot of traumatic things that happened in that time period. And in 4 weeks, she was basically everyone just assumed that she was dying. I had one doctor ask me why we didn't just pull the plug on her.
Right.
So at the end of 4 weeks, she had kicked the pneumonia, which was, the doctors didn't think she was going to happen. Like, when we went there, the original doctor had a death scale. He didn't call it that. I called it that. He said from 0 to 100, 0 is healthy for her, which is still not great because she had stage 4 cancer. And 100 is dead. She was at a 99.
Right.
The first day. And then the next day, she was at a 90. And then the next day she was at an 80. The next day she was at a 70. And then he stopped.
So you could see she was getting better.
She was getting better. And by the end of but she still wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
But by the end of the 4 weeks, she had kicked the pneumonia, which nobody expected. And then she was going to be transferred to a facility to wean off the ventilator.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, hold on, I'm going to talk to this doctor first. And then everything, first she didn't respond to me later in the morning, which was unusual because she always responded to me.
Yeah.
She didn't necessarily respond to everybody, but she always responded to me.
Yeah.
And then everything just crashed. And she passed away before she could move. But it was an awful,
I'm so sorry.
like half an hour, and I felt completely alone. I was calling several people. Nobody was answering. I was panicked, and I asked the nurses, like, you need to do something. And my dad was saying, like, don't. His concern was that they didn't try to resuscitate her. But it was a lot for me because I was expecting her to leave the ICU that day.
Yes, a real change.
So that felt awful.
Yeah.
I did not feel God at all.
No.
Where was
In the
God in
moment.
this situation?
I didn't think he was in there. I didn't think he was there. And I was really upset about it. And so there was a lot of things I had to work through with the trauma and a lot of things to work through. But one of the things as I was doing the self-examination process for years. So she passed away in 2013. This wasn't until after I had Ruby, which was 2018. So 5 years of self-examination.
Yeah.
I eventually came to the realization that I did not believe that God was there because it was bad. And his word promises that he's with us always. And so I said, you were not there and you lied.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that I believed that.
Because you'd said it, you realized you believed it.
I believed it. Well, I didn't say that out loud. This was, I had just written it down.
Yeah.
This was all like while I was in the shower.
Yeah.
And I realized that that's a big deal for me to call God a liar.
Yeah.
And so I said, like, I prayed to God. And meanwhile, I'm asking God every single day, why did this happen?
Yeah.
Why am I having such a hard time with this?
Yeah.
Where were you? I don't think my mom deserved any of that. And then I said, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think you were with me. And I'm mad and I'm sorry. And then that was it. And then I said, and I asked God, is that it? And I heard, that's it. And then big weight lifted off of me. I did not care about the why anymore.
Yeah.
I truly didn't. Like before, it was upsetting me.
Yeah.
But I didn't care anymore. And the weight was lifted up. And then another year and a half later, I was listening to a talk at a retreat, and she said how her mom was dying of ovarian cancer, and she said something like, death is messy and people get scared, something like that. And I was thinking as she was talking, I said, that's not true. My mom was never scared. And then the Holy Spirit interrupted my thoughts and said, that's because I was there.
Wow.
So that was the
The
whole
story gets completed in that way.
yeah, like 7 years later that I had that weight lifted off, but then he did answer my
He said
concern.
I was with her and I was comforting her.
I was there. Yeah, that's why she didn't feel any fear because he was already with her.
It's really helpful. I mean, you have time written down on your diagram there. There's grace, truth, and time. That story involves.
I think that oftentimes people I'll just speak for myself. Often the source of unbelief comes from this idea that like God said he would show up and then he didn't. So therefore it's over. And yet the story keeps going on and God does tend to unravel some of that, our trauma over the course of time. And
Yeah.
I mean, I personally hate waiting, but I think that's a profound testimony about how he does heal over time. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know that's a hard thing to share about your deepest griefs, but wow, what a profound thing that the Lord brings healing in those places, right? And shows that he's always with us.
And a part of me is embarrassed that it took that long, like 6 years. But
I mean,
God is still good.
yeah, I mean, you're ahead of
No
the
matter how
Israelites, you know, you can look at it that way. I mean, depending on which time they got it wrong, you're definitely ahead of the Israelites. 40 years is the kind of standard length of time to get it. So, but it's really helpful. I think it's really helpful. Yeah, we want quick fixes and we want instant answers. To talk to somebody who's walked with God for a long time on one particular issue and has analysed it biblically in light of the gospel, but given it time to hear from God prophetically is a real privilege. I think it's great to hear that. And I'm thrilled that you're in our church. I'm thrilled that you found us, or that the Lord brought you here, whatever it is. One of the things we always say is that, you know, God is calling the church to look like the people he's calling. So you're here because our church needed you. And it's now better because you're in it. So I'm really grateful that you'd be on this podcast and delighted to welcome you.
Yeah.
To Christchurch Fox Chapel, and perhaps even more importantly, to the studio.
To the studio.
Thank you.
And the seal of approval, Ben.
Oh, the Los Yetis approve fully of the Evanuik family.
They only come out of the cupboard there to sing if they approve of what's been said.
They say that apparently is Spanish for I'm feeling crazy and I'm lifting my hands. So that's the
arm.
My arm. Okay.
It's a very charismatic gesture. This has been a podcast of Christchurch Fox Chapel. We're very glad that you would join us. You especially, but everybody. And thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.